Good morning, everybody, and welcome to day 13 of A Year of Miracles. If you haven't already, put on your grounding oils, and protection oils, those oils that Jennifer has been advising us to use on a daily basis. So I'll just give you a moment to do those. I already did mine. I like to do them first thing in the morning and last thing at night, or sometimes I'll do them, depending on what my morning is like, sometimes I'll do them after my shower if I'm not already up when Jen's video is on, because I live on the West Coast. So 6 a.m. is sometimes a little early for me to be up and ready, but I'll do it just after I get up. Anyways, this morning what I want to do is I want to talk to you about the power of the breath, and of course taking a deep diaphragmatic breathing. That's sort of my area of expertise, which is so important in all aspects of our life, but especially when we're doing this work with Jen. And also I want to talk to you about how the breath actually works with the emotions and in moving those emotions, okay? So I discovered breath work back in 2013. And when I discovered it, at the time, had no idea that it was going to change my life completely. And the type of breath work that I discovered was something called transformational breath. And my first session just blew me away. I felt so much love. I just felt so many things I had never felt before. And as I continued with it, it became more and more clear to me that this was where my passion lay. At the time, I had a health and fitness business, and I found myself writing blogs, but instead of telling people what to eat and how to exercise, I was talking about the breath and about feelings and how the breath can move those emotions and how it was so important to process and actually feel our emotions. And so as I got more and more into the breath, I became a facilitator. I am now a certified transformational breath facilitator, and I'm also a co-trainer with the foundation. And it's my joy in life is just to share this with as many people as I possibly can. And whether you choose just to learn to take, one deep diaphragmatic breath a day, whether you choose to do it for 5 minutes every day, whether you decide to jump right in and do transformational breath with me or one of my colleagues, it's just about sharing the importance of the breath. So it's changed for me how I parent, it's changed for me how I wife, it's changed my business, it's changed everything in my life. And so that's what's in it for me, what I've gotten out of it so far. What I want to share with you is what you can get out of really working with your breath and exploring your breath. So there's physical benefits to taking a deep breath, there's mental, emotional, and there is spiritual benefits. So the first benefit, when we look just at the physical, is when we take a deep diaphragmatic breath, and I'll demo that in a moment and show you how it works. But when we do that, we're actually, the way our diaphragm moves, it actually causes a movement in our abdominal organs. And it's kind of like a little gentle massage. And so this moves the colon. It also moves the gut-associated lymph, which is the largest part of our lymph system. And the lymph system in our body is the body's disposal system, and it does not have a pump. So unlike our circulatory system that has the heart to pump it, our lymph does not have a pump. So we have to pump it. And we can do that through movement. We can do that through the breath with moving this gut-associated lymph. It's wonderful for detox. Obviously, if we're getting all that movement in our gut lymph and in our colon, there's going to be a lot of detox. But there's also the more deep breaths that we can take and the more oxygen that we can bring in and the more breaths we can take in a moment, the more oxygen CO2 exchange is going to happen at a very cellular level. And so what happens is the oxygen comes into the cell, comes in, through the red blood cells, and as it comes back out, those blood cells, then they take out CO2 as well as other cellular debris. And that's why sometimes in the morning you may wake up and have bad breath. And I know normally that's an unattractive thing, right? Or something we don't desire, but actually that's a really good sign that your body's done a great job of detoxing. So go, yes, good job, body. It also boosts our immune system. The more deep breaths that we can take, and the more conscious we can be in our breath, that oxygen is just so good for us on just boosting our immunity. It gives us energy. It gives us, that's why after a workout, right, especially like running a cardio workout, where it seems counterintuitive that after expending all that energy that you'd be energized. But the reason is because when we're doing cardio and things like that, we're even doing weights, if we're doing it with the breath, or yoga when we're doing it with the breath, we will actually be taking in more oxygen. So we're going to feel more energized afterwards. It also helps with, blood pressure. It helps with a variety of other things. And as I tell people, if that was the only benefit to deep breathing was the physical, I'm already sold. I am already all in. But it doesn't stop there. So the next area where it benefits is in the emotions and our mental well-being. I kind of touched on how it can help with relaxation. And the way it does that is when we take a deep diaphragmatic breath and we actually bring the oxygen into the lower lobes of our lungs, it sends a physiological response to our brain that triggers those relaxation hormones and those relaxation chemicals into our brain. And that's what helps us with our anxiety, okay? The other mental emotional benefits is that when we learn very young, when we're little kids, that if we don't want to feel an emotion, we just hold our breath. And that works so well for us that we continue doing that throughout our whole entire lives. That's why you may have noticed when something, scary happens, you don't normally stop and take a nice, deep, relaxing breath, right? We tighten it all up, I tighten my gut, I tighten my shoulders, I can feel it here, I can feel it here. And so we do that as a survival mechanism when we're little kids. When we're in trouble and we don't want to feel the shame, or when we've done something and we don't want anyone to find out, we think, if we just say nothing about it and really quiet and slink away, that nobody will know. And so that emotion then gets stopped in its tracks, and it either can get repressed or suppressed, stuck somewhere. Because emotions are energy in motion. And Michael Brown, actually, in his book, The Presence Process, talks a lot about this. And the way that the emotion moves is with the breath in our body. But if we're not taking a breath when something unpleasant is happening, that emotion is going to just, like I said, get stopped in its track. Now, Einstein has told us that energy can't be created or destroyed, but it can be transformed. So what we need to do is actually to breathe into this feeling, whatever it is, good, bad, ugly, indifferent. The more we breathe into it, that's what's going to allow it to transform. Emotions have power when we don't breathe into them. Because then, like fear, let's say we feel fearful, and we get all tight and we get all constricted and we self-protect and go into that survival mechanism. Now that fear has power over us because we don't want to look at it, we don't want to address it, so we're going to do anything we can to distract ourselves from it, to avoid it. We're going to try and repress it, suppress it. We're going to do whatever we can. And that's just our nature, our survival mechanism. However, when we learn the power of the breath, then we can learn that, no, actually to breathe into it gives the power back to us. And Gay Hendricks talks about this in his book, The Big Leap, and he talks about fear. And when we're feeling fearful, that actually if we start to breathe into that fear, to really feel it and just breathe with it, that fear is going to start to turn into excitement. And the more that we breathe into that, it's even going to turn into exhilaration. So that's how the breath can help move an emotion and then transform it. Because often the emotions that we're trying to avoid or not deal with are the quote unquote negative emotions, anger, resentment, grief, depression, because we live in a place where the world doesn't think it's safe to feel those emotions, or at least not to express them. But really, it's so important because anger can be really constructive. If you're really angry with someone who's, taking advantage of you or doing something to hurt you or hurt your children, anger can be really powerful. We just have to use it constructively. What's important is that we don't, pardon my language, diarrhea or vomit our anger and our negativity and our grief all over somebody who, is an innocent party in it. We need to find constructive ways of moving the emotion, not wallowing in it. And so the breath is how we do that. And it will actually transform that emotion into something lighter, like, acceptance or just even just a change in perspective. Or, in those wonderful cases, it can move fear into excitement, because a lot of times, these things are, the flip of the emotion that we're trying to avoid is actually something that's really wonderful and is actually what we want. And so when we use the breath, we can get there. Spiritually, the breath is really awesome, because obviously we can just use the breath to calm our minds. We can use it to get ourselves into a meditative state. There's a lot of different breathing techniques, and I might talk about that, some other time. You can look it up. Alternate nasal breathing. There's pranic breathing. There's all sorts of different types of things that we can do that can calm our mind and help us to enter into a quiet mind, so that we can more easily access a meditative state, a prayerful state, that feeling of relaxation. And you don't have to have any religious beliefs around that, but just for us all, just to be able to meditate and quiet our mind and relax into that has so many benefits, spiritually as well as physical and mental, emotional. They're all kind of interlaced. It's hard to talk about one without realizing that they all affect each other. Also, when we use the breath to the way I work with transformational breath, when we consciously for a whole session, breathe in a certain way with the intention of moving and transforming emotions, when we have let go of some of that, in the similar way that after these sessions with Jen, after these 15, 20 minutes in the morning, you've cleared stuff, you've lifted stuff, you've breathed through and let go of things, it's much easier then to access those pleasant, positive feelings that we so desire, the happiness, the joy, the peace, the acceptance, the lightheartedness, the playfulness. So all of those are much easier to access. And using the breath through, Jen's work, through moving through our emotions, is key in getting there, okay? When you think about it, the breath is the first thing we do when we come into the world. It's the last thing we do before we leave the world. And yet most of us don't pay any attention to how we're breathing. How much time do we spend preparing our food? And yet we can survive weeks without food. We can survive days without water, but minutes without oxygen, without the breath. So I really urge you, if you do nothing else with today's, just pay attention to your own breath. So what I want to do next is actually demonstrate a deep diaphragmatic breath, because a lot of us aren't doing that, and we don't know how to do it, and we've never been shown. And there's different, what I'm going to show you standing up. However, I would urge you, when you actually practice it, is to, you can do it sitting up straight in a chair, or you can do it kind of relaxing in your bed, laying back against pillows with your knees bent. Or if, as you do that, and I'm going to have you put your hands on your low belly, if you're doing it and you don't feel a lot of movement in your belly, then I'm going to have you lay flat on your tummy. And you can lay flat on your bed if it's got kind of a semi-firm mattress, or you can lay flat on a yoga mattress, or on a yoga mat rather. And when you do that, if you do lay flat on your tummy, I do want you to put your hands like cactus arms and just put your head to one side or the other. And the reason you want to do that is to keep your heart open, because otherwise if we do this, we kind of keep our heart closed a little bit. So we want to have at least one arm up, preferably two, okay? So let me show you. Okay, let me move my computer here a little bit. All right. So the diaphragm is a muscle that's dome-shaped. I'm going to get my knuckles out of the way. So it kind of runs along the bottom of your rib cage in a dome. All right. So it sits there nice and happy, and that's what it's like in its relaxed state. And then when we contract it on the inhale, we actually flatten it out. And when it flattens out, that's when it's pushing those abdominal organs and creating that movement in the colon and in the lymph system, the gut-associated lymph that I described. When you exhale, it just relaxes. So inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. The lungs, I'm going to stand to the side. The lungs are, if you can imagine, they're pyramid shaped. So they're narrower at the top and wider at the bottom, okay? And that's when we use the diaphragm, that's when it draws, it almost creates like a vacuum or a suction, if you want to have a visual, that draws the oxygen into the lower lobes of the lungs. And like I said earlier, that's when the physiological relaxation response goes to the brain. if we're only bringing oxygen into the top lobes, it's not going to give us that relaxation. So it's really important to engage the diaphragm and draw it down to the lower lobes of the lungs. That's also where the largest part of our lung material is. So that's where it's got the largest oxygen capacity. And that's also going to help us with all those physical benefits I talked about, like that immune boost, that detox, all of those things. The more of that lower lobes that are filled with oxygen, the more oxygen we have in our bodies and in our systems, okay? So I like to, in the beginning, at least, to breathe in through my mouth, because that's going to our mouth is bigger than our nose generally. So you're just going to be able to take in a bigger volume. And so what I want you to do is I want you to put your hands on your low belly, below your belly button. If you can, even go as far as your pubic bone, okay? And I just want you to start breathing. And if you're feeling a gentle movement of your abdomen without engaging your abdominal muscles, okay? This isn't a case of, pushing your tummy out with your abdominal muscles. You really just want to feel a natural rise and a natural fall of your abdomen. And if you're doing that, that tells you that you're using your diaphragm. So that's good, yay. If that's a little less accessible for you, then just go lay on your tummy, like I explained. Lay on a firm mattress or lay on your yoga mat and breathe like that. And just laying on that is sort of a fail-safe way to trick your brain into using your diaphragm, because it's just automatically going to engage that for you, okay? So if you're unsure, if you're a person that you know that you're not very grounded, I would definitely do it that way. Deep breathing like this is also a way that we can ground ourselves in the morning. So, we can bring in that love and that light and use our oils, but in addition, bring in the oxygen. The oxygen is the life force. It's a thing we can't live without. Christians would refer to it as the Holy Spirit. The yogis, talk about it being the prana. It doesn't matter what we call it, it's what we need. And so bring that in every day, and just that connection with the planet through the breath is going to bring in that feeling of groundedness when you can bring it into your low belly, okay? And bring it all the way down, feel your abdomen move all the way down to your pubic bone, because that's where your root chakra is. So you want to bring it all the way in there. I would like you, if you can, every day to practice like that for 5 or 10 minutes. That would be awesome. So maybe that's something you can do after Jen's 15-20 minutes, maybe, instead of, you can just give yourself till 6:30, and after she usually finishes up like 6:15, 6:20, spend till 6:30, just lay down and breathe like that. If you want to take it a little deeper, you can connect those breaths, which means breathing in and out with no pauses, and do that for about 5 minutes. And the benefit of that is that you're going to take in more breaths per minute. In the normal course of events, we take in 12 to 15 breaths per minute, but when we connect them, we take up to 25 breaths per minute. So it's just going to give you some more of those benefits. I would not advise you do more than 5 minutes of connected breathing without having done some extended sessions with a facilitator using connected conscious breath, just because it can bring up emotions and different things. So I would hold off on doing that. I want you to really practice with that, and then just tune into how it feels. How does it feel just to spend the time with your breath? And just focusing on it and just really paying attention to how it feels in your body. Where do you feel constricted? You may start to notice, that maybe it's a little harder for you to breathe, fully up in your chest. You may feel that there's tension in your shoulders. Just kind of start to notice, okay? Two books that I would highly recommend, and I wish I'd had them here ready to show you. I'll post pictures after this. One is the one I mentioned, Michael Brown's The Presence Process. He really goes into the science of the breath, and I think he's a really interesting guy, but I'm kind of nerdy and sciencey, so he is a bit wordy, but it's also as part of his, you can read his book and get a lot of benefits, but it's part of his book, he also has a 10-week journey using the breath, and he uses connected breathing as well, but it's through his nose. But it's a really awesome resource if you want to go deeper on your own with the breath. The other book that I would recommend is Judith Kravitz's breathe deeply, laugh loudly. And Judith Kravitz is the woman who founded the Transformational Breath Foundation. And so she has taught me a lot of what I know about the breath. And so her book, again, goes into the science of the breath. It goes into the benefits of a connected breath. And she has a lot of case studies in there of people that she has worked with and how it has moved, people with illnesses and a lot of their emotional issues, helped with people, birthing babies using transformational breath as opposed to, the huffing and puffing of Lamaze. So there's a lot, there's just some resources that I want to share with you. I would urge you, if you're really interested in going deeper with this and looking at how you breathe, that's one of the things I do with clients. Is the first thing I do is I look at how they breathe and I look at see where we have restrictions. Because when I said earlier about how as little kids we learn to hold our breath, well, we continue that pattern, and so that creates restrictions, muscle tightness in different parts of our respiratory system. So sometimes we need a little help to open those up. So if you want to explore that, obviously if you live in Southern California, you can contact me, but no matter where you live in the world or in the United States, I know facilitators all over the globe. And I would be very happy to connect you with somebody who could help you out in that department if that's what you want. Take a nice deep breath. I think that's all I have to share today. If anybody has any questions, I would be delighted to hear from you. You can reach me here, or you can email me at drmaryoDwyer@gmail.com. That's drmaryoDwyer@gmail.com. I hope you all have a terrific Sunday, and I forgot to mention in the beginning, but don't forget to do your journaling. You forgive, what you surrender, what your abundance is today, what your divine truth is today, and of course to declutter and share something that you're grateful for. And I know I'm really grateful to be here and to share this with you guys and to be part of Jen's program and be part of this little family of miracles. So thank you and have a fabulous Sunday. And I'm sure I'll see you during the week. Adios. Bye-bye.